Good morning to all present here. I'm Ramya Devi, working as Assistant Professor in SNS College of Technology. Today, I'm going to share a small article regarding security and authentication. So, TechWalk, a leading electronics retailer company with over millions of customers who and also involves in day-to-day sensitive payment information, experienced a cyber attack. So what will be the mental state of them? So they have to face the legal consequences, and the customer will be totally distressed among them, and also they have to restore the security mechanisms. So how do intruders attack a tech wall so easily? Because they have weak hashing for passwords, insecure logging of sensitive information, and weak authentication and authorization mechanisms, and improper access control. Because of this problem, the tech wall breach affects the CIA trade, which is confidentiality through unauthorized access, integrity for unauthorized modification or corruption of data, and availability through disruption of services. So, how do we fix this problem? Application development is very critical aspect of building a robust, scalable, and safe web application. So we have to practice the security mechanisms and focus on authentication and authorization. So what is basically authentication? Authentication is a process of verifying the identity of the user. For example, logging in with a username and password. Authorization is the process of granting a user permission to access certain resources or perform certain actions, ensuring the logged in user has permission to edit their profile. In a full stack web application, you have to implement both the authentication on the backend and enforce authorization on both front end and backend. So, what are the key security concepts and threats we'll be facing for the web application? Like SQL injection, like malicious input can compromise the database, and also the cross-site scripting, cross-site report forgery, broken authentication, and insecure direct object references. So here we have to follow some authentication and authorization methods. So here we are following an authentication methods like session-based authentication and token-based authentication, and the authorization mechanisms like role-based access control and permission-based access control. So in the session-based authentication, so users server-side sessions to track user state. So the server creates a session and stores user information in memory or a database, while a session ID is stored in a cookie on the client. Like what are the advantages of it? It is very simple to implement and it is unstateful. And what are the scalability can be an issue because each server needs to store session data. And what are the steps for session-based authentication? First, in the backend, after a user logs in, generate a session ID and store it on the server. And in the front end, on login, the server sends a session ID to the client as a cookie. And the subsequent request, like the browser sends a session cookie with each request, and the server verifies the session ID. So what when comes to the token-based authentication? So token-based authentication is basically a JSON web tokens, which is often used in modern applications to implement stateless authentication. So JWTs encode user data and are signed using a secret key. These tokens can be used across multiple servers without needing to store session information. Scalable, stateless, easy to use with mobile applications across platforms. But the token can be intercepted if not encrypted, so you need to use HTTPS. So, what are the steps for JWT authentication? So, the first step is user login. So, the backend authenticates the user's credentials. If successful, the backend generates a JWT. And the next is the front end. The JWT is sent to the client, typically in the response body or a cookie. And the third step is the subsequent request. For each subsequent request, the client sends a token in the authorization header using the bearer key. And finally, here the backend, the server verifies the token signature and ensures whether the token is valid or not, or it got expired. So the types of authorization we are handling is role-based authentication and permission-based authentication. Like in role-based authentication, Also, we can use the hash passwords using a strong hashing algorithms like bcrypt, and also we can whether we can give the access using a role based, or we can use using an permission based. So the other security considerations are like secure password storage. We have to always hash passwords using a strong hashing algorithm like bcrypt, and never store plain text passwords in the database. And the cross-site script protection, like we can use a library called DOM Purify to sanitize input before rendering it on the front end to avoid excess attacks. And cross-site forgery can also be avoided using CSRF tokens to prevent unauthorized action. And finally, we can use the HTTPS to encrypt data exchanged between the front end and back end. Thank you.